And call this meeting to order. Dr. Thomason, roll call.
President Reese, members of the board, please let the record show that we have 4 members here tonight. Allie Ford is still on vacation in New York, and we expect her back tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, we are going to have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Four point zero. I move that we approve the agenda.
Support.
Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Superintendent's report. Dr. Thomason.
President Reese, members of the board, we do have some exciting times coming up. We know that we have our elementary schools Meet the Teacher Night coming up this Thursday from 5:30 to 6:30 at all of our sites. And school starts on Monday, July 24th, bright and early. Then Wednesday, August 2nd, we have a board work study and board meeting from 5:30 to 6:30. It'll be the work study and a board meeting at 6:30. And then Thursday, October 10th, we have our 2017 Business and Education Summit at the Higley Center for Performing Arts, and that would be at 7:50 to 10:30 in the morning with a panel of experts answering questions on educational film. And then on August 23rd, the governing board will meet again for a board meeting with a work study at 5:30 and the board meeting at 6:30. That's our upcoming events.
Thank you. For board comments, I just want to say that we did have our Welcome Back rally today, and our keynote speaker he was hilarious. It was pretty funny. A teacher that's a comedian and shares all his high school students' experiences, and it was good. I think everyone really enjoyed it. So it was great to see everyone coming back, and thank our vendors for our vendor fair and all the goodies they handed out to our teachers, and the donations for prizes for them as well. So I just wanted to say thank you. Any other board comments?
Well, I just would add that thank you to Ms. Reach and Ms. Reese and Dr. Thomason and some of the others that were heavily involved in making that happen today. So I just want to publicly thank you guys.
President Reese, members of the board, I have gotten 5 comments back from the vendors. They loved the program. They were able to donate more than 60 gifts for teachers that came to the Welcome Back rally and stayed for our vendor fair and reception. And I think it was a tremendous hit this year, and appreciate everything for the board for their comments and helping out with the event and giving out gifts at the end. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other board comments? All right. 6.0, the request to speak to governing board. We don't have any requests, so we will go on. 7.0. I move that we approve the consent agenda items 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8, 7.9, 7.10, 7.11, and 7.12.
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. I did see one of our travel requests as Higley High School's choir performing at Carnegie Hall. How exciting is that? That's awesome.
I did hear that was Mr. DeCoste had a contact over there, so
Very nice.
who you know.
Hey, that works. What an experience for those students. All right, if there's no other comments or questions on consent, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. We don't have any old business, so we'll go on to our action and information items. 9.1 is our information of our financial report for June of 2017. Board members should have had that in their packet. Does anyone have any questions regarding the financial summary? And Mr. Holland is not here tonight. I do have a question on one of the items, but I will contact him. It's an explanation piece for me. So since Mr. Holland's not here tonight, I will get a hold of him and just ask him to explain a little bit to me. All right, we will go on to 9.2, information item, accelerated reader. This information item, it was a question and concern regarding accelerated reader was brought forth by Mr. Witovich, and he had requested an action item on this, and it got placed as an information item, and our staff attorney, Ms. Good, will go through the explanation there.
I'm better with a rock and a chisel. Okay, it was, we've been asked, as Mrs. Reese mentioned, Mr. Witovich asked to have, considering the discontinuation of the use of accelerated reader, to have that put on. And I advised that it was an issue that was already decided when the new ELA curriculum was adopted. I'm going to just go through that a little bit. There's really kind of two issues: whether the administration can discontinue using AR when there had been no action taken by the board. And that's an argument based on a policy that I'll have up in a moment, and whether it's consistent with district policy for instructional materials to not be both adopted and eliminated with board action. So the question really is, when the board adopted the ELA curriculum, did there have to be a separate action to not use accelerated reader? And my opinion is not, that when you adopt a new curriculum, you are in effect saying, these are the materials that we are going to use, and that you do not take a separate action to say those previously used will no longer be used.
I would just like to, as you begin this, as you started the conversation, you said I. Board policy IGD's curriculum adoption says all new programs and courses and study will be subject to board approval, as will an elimination of programs and courses and extensive alteration in their content. Curriculum proposals from the professional staff may be presented to the superintendent, who will be responsible for making recommendations to the board. So I'm just kind of concerned, and even in reference to my request for board action, a board member can request an action at any time, and I will do that today again as well. And I understand it says here that it's the superintendent and the president of the board, so I'm just a little bit kind of confused, and maybe if the other board members might have that question too. Why is our staff attorney involved when this should be a discussion, when a board member requests board action? That's per policy BEDBA. It's my right as a board member to request an action. Why is it that conversation is to take place between the board president and the superintendent? I don't read anywhere in here where it says consultation with our staff attorney. I'm just a little kind of confused on that, where that takes place.
All right, I'll try to address it, but I don't know that I can do it to your satisfaction. The role of a staff attorney is to make every attempt to keep the district out of trouble, and whoever is acting as the district at any given time. You can certainly, every board member can ask to have an item put on the agenda. That isn't necessary that it be on the upcoming meeting. Normally, it would be, but there are some times when it is appropriate to postpone the consideration of that matter. It could be for a lot of reasons. But in this case, we didn't want to confuse the issue of do we use accelerated reader from the question of whether that had already been determined and whether it was something that would be a reconsideration of the same issue. So whether you think it was appropriate or not, I was asked about it, and I went along, encouraged the people who were not in favor of putting it on the upcoming meeting to allow looking at this policy and giving some explanation to it, and then letting the board as a whole decide whether to put it on the following meeting's agenda.
And Ms. Good, if I can address that,
Well, let me
as
just-
the board president,
I just want to say one thing, okay? She just said it's the board can make that decision to do a board action. No, it's not. It's the board, any board member can make an action, so it's not up to our, as a group today, to make that decision for the next board action. That's where, I just need that clarification. I mean, it's not up to the whole board to make the decision about board action. It's an individual board member can have that option.
well, you had asked why you referred to the policy where a board member can request an item on the agenda, and you said it doesn't say anywhere in there the consultation from the staff attorney. The reason Ms. Good was consulted regarding that is because when you sent that request to me, you had referred that board policy was violated. And when you had indicated by us not approving or voting separately on removing accelerated reader that we had violated a policy. And that is why Ms. Good was consulted. It was, hey, we have a board member here concerned that we have violated a board policy. And I don't think, I can only speak for myself. I'm not okay with a board policy being violated. And Ms. Good is our expert in our board policy. Therefore, with your request, Ms. Good was consulted on what do we do if board policy was violated, then we need to talk about this. And as she has started to explain in her opinion, the board policy you're referencing as being violated was not violated. And this is not a discussion we wanted to have in an office. And therefore, I ask that it be put on an information item so that our staff attorney can explain the policy you're referencing and how it would work, and that accelerated reader was encompassed in our new curriculum adoption vote. So Ms. Good is going through to explain that, but you had asked why the staff attorney was consulted, and the staff attorney was consulted because you had concerns that we had violated a policy. So as the board president and superintendent, we felt it was important to seek legal counsel as a district on that policy.
I appreciate that. And I have a question. The board has their own attorney, correct? So I guess why didn't you ask the board attorney in reference to that versus staff attorney? I guess that's
I would like to address that because that's something that is very confusing to a lot of people. Staff attorney is just a title I have, so don't let that mislead you. That does not mean I am the attorney for the staff. I think that title was come up with to explain that it was a salaried position, not an attorney on retainer. Sometimes people appreciate knowing that the district is not spending lots of money on an hourly fee for outside counsel. But I am the attorney for the district. In this meeting, you are acting as the district. But maybe the superintendent who is the district. Today, we bought a piece of land, and it's the superintendent's signature that appears on that because he's the district with respect to that. So I'm the attorney for the board, whether you like it or not. I suppose you could create a new position of outside counsel. You're entirely able to do that. But no, I'm your attorney. It's my job to keep you out of trouble just like the rest of them.
Madam President, may I?
Mr. Glover?
So I just kind of have to somewhat respectfully disagree with the premise that we voted for the elimination of Reading Renaissance. We voted to adopt and pay for language arts pre-K to 12. AR is not a curriculum, and I think when you vote to replace curriculum, it's understood that the old curriculum would go out, but Reading Renaissance is not a curriculum. It's an independent reading program, and it is a separate program. And so I did voice concerns at that time, and I'm also willing to listen to the rest of your presentation, but I don't feel like we voted Reading Renaissance out that night by any means.
Maybe
It was mentioned, but we voted to adopt a new curriculum.
Yes, it was. And we understand that you're a supporter because you expressed that very clearly. And I went back and looked at that portion of the video. Both of you gentlemen really need to get closer to the microphones because you're very difficult to hear on the videos. But that being aside, we can disagree. That's fine. I just want to look at the policy IGD, which Mr. Witovich brought to our attention, believing that it had been violated, that there was no vote about ending the use of AR. And I underlined there that first sentence, all new programs and courses of study, as will be the elimination of programs and courses of study. In that, we really have the question of what's a program? I pulled a statement from the website for Renaissance Learning, and one sentence, the Accelerated Reader Program is a computerized program that has, for reading comprehension, the first program has sort of the dictionary definition of steps toward a goal. And the other computerized is, well, it is a computer system. It's not, however, a program as that term is used in the policies. And I gave you an example there from policy IHA, which talks about basic instructional program. And you'll see that program is used in a much broader sense. It talks about the instructional program of the district or the school, that the instructional program is made up of sequences in, and then you see what we think of as subjects. So the word program, as it's used in the policy manual, is much more extensive. That leaves AR as kind of very similar to what Mr. Glover just said. It's not a curriculum, it's not a program, it is a supplemental material. And I put supplemental, supplementary, because those two terms are both used throughout the policies, and it seems that they're interchangeable. In policy IJJ is where it addresses adopting textbooks, which of course is the authority of the board to adopt textbooks. The supplemental materials is an administrative function. There's not a lot of explanation in that policy, because when they go on talking about supplemental materials, it seems that what they are really focusing on are the extra books that can be read. But there's another part of that policy, and in this one I've highlighted the second sentence, where it is the professional staff that brings to the board recommendations for, I'll just say, programs, for courses, for instructional materials. So it's the administration that is the origin of recommendations to look for materials to be used for the educational betterment of the district. So how are they approved? We've got the policy, IGA, that says the board authorizes the superintendent to develop curriculum. The duty of the superintendent to develop proposals. In the qualifications and duties of the superintendent's the professional consultant to the board, and in this capacity makes recommendations to the board for changes in board policies and the educational program. Based on those policies, it's my opinion that the governing board does not unilaterally propose programs. The ELA curriculum was brought to the board. It was discussed in depth. There were discussions along the way in work study sessions. And then at the board meeting, Dr. Schillingberg made a very complete summary of the program as it would be presented. Mr. Butovich asked at that meeting whether there were reading comprehension materials within the HMH program that would serve the same purpose of promoting reading comprehension that AR does. And Mr. Glover, you actually said to the teachers, well, don't worry, I really support AR. I think it's a great program. But don't worry, I'm not going to stand in the way of adoption of this policy. And I know you meant that.
I agree with that. Yeah, I remember saying that
Yeah.
because because we had to purchase the books and the curriculum.
Exactly.
So I thought, I was led to believe that we could still have a conversation about Reading Renaissance afterwards, and I did ask for that.
Okay, and I'm not going to, I won't get into that. All I just want to say is that AR was not going to be used, I do believe was discussed. That in response to your question, that Dr. Schillingberg had said that at least for this first year, AR wouldn't be used so that the new program could be evaluated. And maybe, Dr. Schillingberg's right there. You can ask him questions about the educational end of it and that later. But I don't think the policy, that there was any problem with the policy having been involved or violated, because the AR is not a program as that is used in the policy, and it is not necessary for the board to approve not using it. On the other hand, I believe you actually did that by adopting a program that was dealing with reading comprehension, and when it was explained that AR wouldn't be used because you wouldn't be able to evaluate the new program. When a board makes a decision, and I understand your disagreement, but when the board makes a decision knowing that the interpretation is that it will, in this case, that AR will not continue to be used, that the decision with that new adoption is, in effect, the decision to replace what was currently being used. Now, I think that as far as the educational value of AR, I don't know anything about that. But I do believe that the board was aware that the new curriculum was going to be used. Also, that the policies do not provide for the board to require additional materials to be used. So we've really got two ways of looking at that. The things that I think are important to consider, my advice always is to do something that doesn't violate policy. Mrs. Reese indicated she was very concerned about that, as we all should be. I hate that expression, but my advice always is stay in your own lane. When one person or role has been given authority, then you let that person exercise that authority. Now, the board, let's just stick with this. The board can certainly talk to administrators, talk to the superintendent. This is a good program. I'm really in favor of it. But the origination of the program comes, if it's something that must be approved by the board, then it comes to the board rather than being imposed by the board. My other advice is you don't reconsider matters too quickly. Well, what is too? That's going to depend. You don't have a policy. Some entities, some public entities that I've worked for do, that you can't reconsider a matter within X amount of time. You don't, so you just have to have a reasonable idea. in this case, it was April 19th, 3 months ago today, that the decision was made. Now, if your argument is, well, we didn't know AR wouldn't be used anymore, then I guess we've got a different issue. But if my interpretation is correct, that when you adopt one thing, it simply replaces what was there. And that you don't spend unbudgeted funds unnecessarily. Now, I understand that it's $60,000 to get AR for all of the elementary schools. I know it wasn't budgeted because the other program had been adopted, but now whether it could be used or not, I am told it would not be, but that is something that the educators would have to address. If the board members want to reconsider the issue of the approval of accelerated reader, it can be put upon the agenda for the next meeting. Mr. Witovich is correct that the policy, BEDBA, I think it is, does indicate that one member can. However, maybe that one member wouldn't want to have it on if it wasn't going to be considered. So it would be appropriate to make a motion if someone wants to have that put on the agenda. I would imagine that there are some questions for Dr. Schillingberg or perhaps Mrs. Richards, who's now the curriculum person for the K-6, which is AR's neighborhood. If you have some questions related to the use of AR and how that might coexist with the new curriculum, they're certainly the ones to discuss those things with. And I think that's perfectly fine to do it under an information item. You just can't take action tonight. Although you could reschedule it, you could ask to schedule it for the next meeting. That's well within something that you can do. But the bottom line is, for me, that the policy wasn't violated, that a vote on the new curriculum, when it was explicitly stated that AR would not be used, at least for the first year. The unanimous vote to adopt the curriculum with that knowledge constituted a substitution of the new curriculum for whatever materials were being used, and that's including AR. If you have
Madam
anything more
President?
for me?
Well, no more. I just have a few things I would like to say and be on the record as saying, if that's okay. Knowing that, I still don't think I would have slowed up getting these books and these materials. But maybe we could have separated that out or something. But I think that taking away one of the most important tools for librarians still is not a good idea. I have very high hopes for the new language arts adoption, but I think independent reading is important. Reading Renaissance is a research-based program. It gets clear reading growth, increases vocabulary, has a bunch of benefits. To think that these kids reading short little leveled readers and class sets of books is the same thing. It's not. Even HMH will tell you that these two things can work effectively in conjunction with one another. And I did ask them. I've heard how this decision was made because I talked to Dr. Schillenberg about it. And I do agree, with making more time for teachers to be successful with this adoption. And I don't disagree that there are things we can do that can be dropped from teachers' plates. I just, again, do not think this was one of them that should have been dropped. A textbook is really not that hard to understand. They're laid out pretty easily, I think. There's plenty of training and support with this adoption. You know, it's my understanding that the principals decided this, and my concern is without asking librarians or their teachers or their staff, and I can't blame them. You know, we have told principals that, you know, the libraries weren't important when they were downsized and not brought back as soon as they could have been. But, you know, we told them it's not important when we asked parents and PTOs to pay for Reading Renaissance for a while. You know, we told them it's not important when we have not had universal continuous trainings for admins and teachers who use Reading Renaissance. You know, I don't believe, I've seen the numbers, I don't believe the curriculum department was even looking at the numbers for STAR and AR. You know, they're not good. But when this board voted to bring back media specialists, I really didn't think we were voting to remove one of the best tools that the libraries had at their disposal. So I would be in favor of bringing it back with some additional training, and I've told both Dr. Thomason and Dr. Schoenberg that, you know, the analogy I was trying to make earlier this week is, you know, if it was an old dilapidated bike that didn't work, I'd say throw it out. But it's a perfectly good bike. It's just no one's riding it. You know, it works. We just let it sit in the garage unused. And I would even say that's not even a good analogy because those kids took 169,000 quizzes last year. 169,000 in Higley. So, you know, there's a lot of research that suggests that some of the most reliably and valid homework is just independent reading. And the easiest way to measure that is AR and STAR. And HMH does not have the same components to measure that as easily. They have assessments, but they are different. Renaissance offers literacy skills quizzes, vocabulary quizzes, and a piece that lines up with the HMH readers. Independent reading helps develop vocabulary, which all the content areas need. So I would hate to lose a year with these kids.
Mr. Glover,
Well, I'm almost done.
I was just going to suggest that you ask to have it put on next.
I believe we will, but I wanted to make the point so these guys might be supportive of that.
Okay.
So, you know, again, Reading Renaissance is not a curriculum. It's independent reading. The data is easy to read, but you have to look at it. And the kids already know how to use it. So there's not really a training issue with the kids. They took 169,000 of these quizzes. So, you know, there's some bad practices going on for sure. The data shows that if anyone were to look at it, but that can be tidied up pretty easily with a little bit of training. So, you know, again, HMH's diagnostic tests and their placements are not as good as STAR. And I talked to HMH and asked them that question. So they have assessments again, but the teachers, like if a kid gets like 100% 3 or 4 times in a row, the teacher really has to be looking at that. Whereas STAR will just, they'll take the STAR test and it will say you are now reading at a 4th grade, 3rd month level. So I'm interested in hearing what the other board says, and I would be interested in placing it back on. But again, when a decision is made without the input of media specialists, I think that was probably short-sighted.
I think what my discussion was in reference to why I was having this conversation is I stopped in one of the schools the other day, and I don't know if the other board members have seen the new reading books, and maybe I was looking at the wrong reading books that are going in, but these books were only 7 or 8 pages. It looked like a pamphlet, and then I look on the shelves for the books that were Accelerate Reading. They were actually books. And I'm looking at this 7-page pamphlet that we're calling a book for this reading program versus this book that's actually a book, and the children have to do accelerated reading. And that's where my concerns started coming in here when I saw that. And before when we had that presentation, I never saw those books, and I think if I saw those books that night, then my conversation would have been different.
And I hear what you're saying, and I think that's where Ms. Good is. Once we make a decision, that's our decision. And I'm sorry, Mr. Glover, based on what you'd said, that you didn't realize we weren't using AR. It was very clear to me. Dr. Schillingberg specifically stated that 1 year, we wanted 1 year with this new curriculum. And after this year, we would reevaluate, and if we needed to, bring AR back. I don't know how you get any clearer than that. And the conversation that continued was that in the past, with financial issues, some PTOs paid for AR for their schools. And I specifically asked Dr. Schillingberg before our vote, during that conversation, that we notify these PTOs that we are not using AR this next year. Do not allow them to spend the money on this. That we're not using it. Just because the district isn't purchasing it doesn't mean the PTOs should go out and purchase it. It is not a supplemental, it's not a reading program, comprehension program. It is, we're not using AR in the 17-18 school year. And I see this, and I'm sorry, and I don't know any other words to use, as buyer's remorse. And to me, that's very different than making an uninformed, uneducated decision. If I felt that this information wasn't shared, that we were bamboozled, that it was, oh, no, that conversation had never occurred, and then we were kind of taken by surprise that, what do you mean we're not using AR? We never talked about that. We didn't know AR was going away with the curriculum.
I never said that. I never said that.
No, I'm not saying. You had indicated that you didn't realize that night that we weren't using it, that you thought further discussion could continue to happen.
Because I literally said that in the meeting, and I got the impression, I was left with the impression that we could still talk about that other little piece down the road. And that's fine. If the decision is, that's the decision.
Sure.
You know, I would have separated them out. I would have made some other motions. But we have had a lot more information now since that vote that we did not have then. I was not aware that principals in a closed room made this decision. I would have thought that a media specialist would have been asked.
To me, sometimes those decisions need to be made. And Dr. Schillingberg made it very clear, I'm asking for 1 year of no AR. 1 year. Let them get the new curriculum. Let's see how beneficial the program that comes with this new curriculum. Let the teachers learn this new curriculum, and we'll review it.
Well, and again, what we didn't know then is we were told that they had all the same tools that Reading Renaissance has, and it turns out they actually really don't.
We were told that it has a reading comprehension component.
That was, you know, every bit as probably as every bit as good as Reading Renaissance, and it's not. It's not.
So, to me, like I said, for me, when we voted, I knew very clearly we were not using AR during the 2017-18 school year. So that's where I'm at on it.
I would just like to make a comment now in closing if no one else has any questions. I, as a board member, like to make the motion of an action item, approve accelerated reading as a supplemental program for the reading curriculum be placed on the next board meeting agenda, please.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to put it on, and we have a second. Any comments, concerns? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
No,
All those opposed? Nay.
no.
You can't have a vote on a board, me asking as an individual board member, asking to be placed an item on the agenda. You're not going to vote. Me as a board member can ask for an item to be placed on the agenda. It doesn't need a board vote, correct? Say yes or no.
Yes,
Thank you.
you may ask.
Thank you.
And you have already submitted your materials and everything, so normally that would be included with the request.
So along with that request, then we need to know where this funding would be coming from, as it was not budgeted.
Well, those are things that will have to be discussed at the meeting where it's on the agenda, the next meeting, August 2nd.
Okay. It was my understanding that we would have to vote since it was
Nope.
kind of all encompassing in that HMH vote, essentially changing that.
The effect of its being approved would be to change the decision that had previously been made. It wouldn't undo adopting the HMH curriculum,
Gotcha.
but it would, in effect, if that were approved, then it would be, the board would be saying it will be a supplemental. So that really is separate. It won't do anything to the decision to adopt
Okay.
it's taking a piece that some of the members didn't realize was part of the vote.
So for clarification, because we don't vote on supplemental, essentially would it be a vote for funding it? Because it's not the board's role to vote on supplemental materials.
That's correct.
So essentially, it would be, do we fund AR or not? I'm just trying to seek clarification
I'm
because
I'm
as a
sorry.
supplemental material, we don't vote on supplemental materials, we vote on the curriculum.
Well, you're not supposed to vote. According to the policy, you don't vote on supplementals.
So,
But I can't stop you from doing it.
well, but then we're in violation of that policy because that's not our role. So essentially, then the discussion and vote would be, do we fund AR because it's not a budgeted item?
That would be the approach that I think you would want to take. And the merits of AR would certainly be discussed, but you're going to have to do it from the funding perspective. Sort of like when we,
Okay.
approve a lot of things, we're actually approving the funding for it.
President Reese,
Mrs. Kaler?
finally speak up. Mrs. Good, so tell me this, when we have a site decision on a campus where a principal decides, I'm going to do Leader in Me, which is a character kind of supplemental program per se, that didn't come before the board for a vote, did it? In the
No.
past?
No.
So I'm very confused tonight, to be very honest, that this is before us again, because I too was under the impression that we were going to take a year for the ELA adoption. I thought that was very clear from Dr. Schillingberg at our, at the informational meeting when he presented his PowerPoint. I did hear the concerns of other board members about AR. I believe I stated I am not a fan of AR. I saw it implemented in the classroom while I worked in the district, and I've seen it through my own children. I've seen children left out of the popsicle party because they didn't make their goal, and that one kid sitting out in the hallway, and it breaks their heart. I haven't seen it used like Mr. Glover has probably seen it used. So for me, I'm not a fan, but I was open to what is best for our district as far as the curriculum goes, and I was trusting Dr. Schillingberg that give it a year and we'll readdress it. So that was my, that is my take on AR at this time.
President Reese, members of the board, I feel like I should speak up here and at least share the perspective of the curriculum department, because I think you're going down a very dangerous path. If the board as individuals wants to decide what we teach, then you don't really need a curriculum department or administrative team doing it. And I know you may have seen some of the materials and not be happy with them, but you got to realize it was an entire committee from across the district that chose these materials. It wasn't just me or principals. It was a very arduous process that was very thorough. And if we want to evaluate how well this program is doing for us, we can't have anything else in there convoluting the data. We could put AR in there and we could have this great jump. You'll have no idea if it's AR or it's HMH. We need to have at least a year to evaluate the program and decide if it meets our needs. I met with the media specialist today. I asked them about AR. 2 of the 9 said they loved it. I explained what we were doing. They understood. There was no problem. Now, yes, in a perfect world, we would involve everybody in our decisions, but we are doing a lot of stuff. We have very little time. It's very disappointing to me how much time I've had to spend on AR when we have so many more serious issues in this district. The other thing you have to understand, there is no time for training for AR. HMH is covering all of our available time. Mr. Glover, you saw the data yourself. You said it doesn't look very good because we're not using it with Fidelity. We're not going to use it with Fidelity this year either because there's no time to help them with it. If we go a year, we see that it's a weakness in the program and it can help, and we have a community of people who talk about that and decide it does, then we'll put it in there and we'll provide the appropriate training to make sure it's used well. But if you're not going to respect the opinion of your committees and the leadership you have put together, nobody's going to want to work here.
Well, I just would like to respond and say I am in support of the ELA adoption. I was, I have, and I will be. Just want to be very clear on that.
I understand, and that's great, but again, you have to see that the capacity of the system to include this other item that is still $60,000 that we will not be able to support, to me is a misuse of funds. And I don't know how many adoptions you've been a part of, but I've been a part of a lot of them, and teachers are overwhelmed by all the materials. The books that Mr. Wojciechowicz is talking about are leveled readers. They're not the textbooks for the students. They have hundreds of them to help kids with reading based upon where their levels are. Again, each elementary has about 7 pallets of books. They've never had this much material. They had nothing to use before, but even when they had nothing to use, AR was not used with Fidelity. So that concerns me. You know, as the person over curriculum, we don't want to spend dollars that aren't used effectively and training provided to our teachers. There's an issue there. I haven't had time to dig into that. Right now, I'm still trying to get the math adoption started. We have all these materials we're trying to get out to the teachers. I think it's important that we respect the process, respect the people that are doing it. And as I said, I have nothing against AR, but I have to support the program we're spending $1.7 million on.
Any other comments?
President Reese?
Dr. Thomason?
President Reese, members of the board, I'd be remiss if I didn't give my opinion and tell you where I stood and how I felt about this whole process. Number one, going back to placing the item on the agenda, my main concern was whether we were following policy and the right procedures. That's why I did go and look for our attorney for help and expertise in that area. I'd rather take a little longer and err on the side of caution and do things the right way so we don't violate policy. From that aspect, that's the reason why we did go to our district attorney and take a look at that. As far as the AR is concerned, I do believe AR is a good program, but my major concern with the AR this year is the adoption of the new language arts curriculum. I do believe our teachers do have quite a bit on their plate with learning a completely new adoption, a new curriculum. These are teachers that have some of them have been in the district for 10, 12 years without a new adoption. And so it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of resources, a lot of training to help get them up to speed, to have new lesson plans, new training, new curriculum that they're looking at. And so my concern is for our teachers in moving that forward and taking a look at the HMH program and implementing it with fidelity, reliability, and making sure that we're doing what's right for our community and our students. So that is where I am in favor of postponing the AR Renaissance program for 1 year, so we can make sure that when we do, or if we do bring AR back, we can implement that with fidelity and validity too. So to make sure that we're using both programs for the best needs and the highest possible gains for our students. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and we will bring this on the August 2nd agenda, and sure there will be further discussion. All right, 9.3. I move that we approve the sole source procurement vendors for 2017-2018.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the sole source vendors? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. 9.4. I move that we approve the purchasing contract renewals for the fiscal year of 2017-2018.
Second.
Any questions or comments regarding contract renewals? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. 9.5. I move that we approve the media specialist job description.
Second.
Questions, comments on the job description?
Sure, I have some comments or questions.
Mr. Ratovich?
Perhaps the chairperson of that committee could come forward, whoever that may be. Perhaps whoever the chairperson is of that committee, or Mrs. Good or Ms. Good. I have some questions, so who am I going to ask my questions to? I guess that's where I'm asking. Okay, my first question is in reference to the process on the adoption of this job description. I see I requested a copy of the minutes of that meeting, and it was dated May 30th at 3 p.m. It doesn't list the location or any notes that was taken. And
Mr. Ratovich, just real quick for
Okay,
some
sure.
background clarification.
Okay.
This is another item that you had specifically requested to be put on for action. We had talked about it at our last meeting when we did the budget. Ms. Good had explained, because again, Ms. Good, excuse me, Ms. Good was brought into it because there was concern on a violation of a policy. And Ms. Good had also explained the difference between policy and practice briefly at that last meeting. I just wanted to clarify that you did have a concern that we did not have the amended media specialist job description come before the board, and you were concerned of a policy violation then. So I just wanted to give that background. So
Sure, and as this action reads, at requesting, as it just reads, it says approved media specialist job description. So that's what we're here to discuss this evening.
right, I just wanted to
Okay.
to let them know.
I guess my question was in reference to the people who attended this meeting, of the list, are any of them media specialists? That's my question. Can somebody answer that question for me, please?
Well, first I'd like to start out to share that my job description does not say I'll write job descriptions,
Okay.
but because we had no one in HR, our department tried to help out to work this through. So I met with the principals to get their input on what they needed in their buildings with a media specialist. Then we set up a meeting as soon as we could, which was today, but that was set up a long time ago, to share with a media specialist. These are the job expectations based upon our conversations with the principals. And again, looking at what other media specialists do, we did look at those. And we had no problems. I mean,
Now, the board requested to hire 9 media specialists, if you remember, and we hired 9 media specialists, okay? And these people signed contracts with us as media specialists. They left campus, they went, during the summer break. If you look here on May 30th, okay, there was a discussion with a group of individuals who are not media specialists. They're all principals and administration. And I know that's been a question when we've had work studies time and time again, when things are brought to us, to include the whole community and to include the people who are directly affected by this decision, because they're the experts. They might have missed some things on here. And on this description, I don't see inventory of equipment, things like that. So when you talk to the media specialists, they would look at this description and say, hey guys, you missed this, or you missed this, or this is not possible. Okay, well, when this decision was made on May 30th, and I see it was made at 3 p.m., and then must have been the meeting was, at 4:44 p.m. on that same day, an email is going out, which you're in possession of, advising the principals of the new job description. So here a group of individuals had this meeting at 3 o'clock. At 4:44, they're sending this out with no discussion with people who were directly affected. Now, this job description, these people in this media center affects 80% of the population of this school district, okay? And then in addition to this, I don't see where the superintendent was even on this email as one of the copies. So something that is as important as this, that affects 80% of the children, that's going to have an impact on the children, and our superintendent wasn't even CC'd on this. I don't know if he was made aware of this, but he's not even in this loop, and I'm just a little nervous on this, and I know we've had questions time and time again when you are going to come to before the board, bring all the policy holders with that, and that's what makes me just concerned that I can't accept this job description today, because I feel there's not enough input into this. And hey, bring the media specialists, have a conversation with them. Don't have a conversation with them at 3:30 on the day of a board meeting to tell me that they approve this. That's not the way we do business in Higley, Higley, we are one family. We will work together on making a decision, because if you want these media specialists to buy into this, it's not about dictating to them that you're going to do this. It's very important to make them be part of the decision-making process. And we've had a conversation, and in reference to the resources, I've just shared with all of you today some national websites, job descriptions, schools that have media specialists. All these things are, and I can make that phone call in 5 minutes and get this. This does not reflect the future of our children. Our children are going to be global citizens. It's not about a group of people meeting for 30 minutes saying, this is what I'm going to plan for you for the next year of your curriculum in our school district. I don't want that. I want our children to get the best of anything that takes place. That's the reason I ran for this school board. Is to make sure that the children in this school district has the best opportunities possible, and that we are on the cutting edge. And I want people to visit us. I want people to come to Higley and say, you know what, you've got fantastic media center. You are out there. You are doing what needs to be done. With this job description that took 30 minutes with no input from media specialists, this is not going to take us to the next level. And I cannot accept this evening. And my recommendation, if we don't accept, is for them to go back, talk to the media, bring the family in. Let's get the best plan so we can move forward for the next century with the students in this district.
Madam President? Oh, go ahead.
Just a moment, please, Mr. Glover. I just wanted to comment, sorry. A couple things, Mr. Ratovich. One, I don't know any employee who writes their own job description. The definition of a job
They
description.
don't write their own job description, but it's about, you and I have sat on work study sessions, and I saw Mrs. Ford say time and time again, bring all the group to the table here. Because
I
when you look on
understand.
this board description, do you see inventory on there?
I understand.
Inventory's not on there. $1 million
Okay,
worth of equipment.
let me give you the definition of a job description. It is a broad, general, and written statement of a specific job based on the findings of a job analysis. In general, it includes duties, purpose, responsibilities, scope of work, and conditions of a job, along with the job title and name or designee of the person to whom the employee reports. Job descriptions usually form the basis of job specifications. So, with that being said, a job description is not all-encompassing. It is not specific to every role and responsibility that a person has. And I have worked for large corporations, and I own my own. I guess somebody does write their own job description because I did write mine as a business owner. When you're employed by somebody else, employees don't typically write their own job description. And in addition to that, when we approved the media specialists, the actual action item that we approved was that the governing board will authorize the superintendent to hire 6 additional, to have a total of 9 media specialists, and the implementation of a program to improve the implementation of technology into the elementary curriculum. And the issue that was listed is that currently the elementary media program is served by 3 media specialists and 9 aides. Through evaluating the program to determine the appropriate staffing to strengthen the integration of technology into the elementary curriculum, the administration has determined that 9 media specialists will provide optimum results. So when we approved the additional media specialists, it was for the implementation of technology into our elementary curriculum. It was to create bring back library as a special, where our media specialists will be teaching technology during that time. The job description that's been brought forward to us is not any different than the teacher job description. I pulled that up today. A job description is an overall broad statement of the specific, or of the job that you are hiring for. It's not all-encompassing of roles and responsibilities. So everything that somebody does cannot be listed on a job description. It would be pages and pages long. So there is conversation, and there is roles and responsibilities, and there is explanation with these employees, these media specialists, with any employee, no matter which industry you're in, is, okay, now this is what you're doing. So as an employer myself, the expectation to have an employee have input on their job description is not reasonable. There's nothing wrong with reviewing the job description and asking, is there any concerns? Tell me what else you do. There's times, this is an updated job description. It's not new. It's updated. And the principals, Dr. Schillingberg, they should have an idea of what they want that media center to look like, what they want that media specialist to do. You don't have to do the job to know. And by doing that job does not make you qualified to write a job description.
Okay, in reference to what you just said to me, so you have a group of individuals that have no technology experience with media centers writing a job description, and that's fine. The other issue that I think you need to have think about is in reference to grading assessment system, policy IKA-R. If it's all in front of you, board members, I see nothing on here in reference to technology. So how are you implementing a job description asking the media centers to test technology when you as a board member do not have a powered policy? we have to implement a policy to set it up in reference to grading. So show me where we have a policy in reference to grading. We have it for everything else here. Here, it's all spelled out. Every curriculum, band, gym, everything. This school district does not have a policy in reference to grading technology. So how are we going to even implement grading technology in the media center if we do not have a policy?
President Reese, can I interject? I just like to share, first of all, again, May 30th, we met with the principals because we had the turnover at HR. I wanted to get that job description done, so we had it available to our staff. The email for me afterward was so quickly done because we didn't write minutes. So I wanted to be efficient and get the information that we talked about out to everyone to make sure it was correct. It also included information that we got from the media specialists about things that were important to them. Mostly that was having a sub. And when we talked about today, again, that meeting was set up a while ago. It wasn't set on purpose to be before this board meeting. I wanted to get their input from our department with what supports they needed. They were delightful. They were so excited. They were very happy and excited to do this job. We talked about the grading and the concern that is. And I think that's a concern for all of our specialists, and we're going to have a conversation about that.
You know, before you go on, my question is, you have a conversation, you have this meeting on May 30th, and we need to rush things along, and how exciting it was today at 3:30 to have a meeting with the media specialist and to get their input.
I said they were excited. I didn't say it was an
Yes,
exciting meeting.
This is July 19th, and May 30th is when you have had this meeting. I think if this was important enough for how important it is for this school district to get input from the media specialist, I think I would have called them on the phone during this huge void to get their opinion. It seems like the day of our meeting at 3:30, now to get their opinion an hour before the board meeting and say how wonderful it is, you need to have a conversation during this time.
But I think we're confusing multiple issues. We're talking about a job description. That's what's before us right now, is the job description.
Yeah. My
So-
concern on the job description is the input and the decision-making, the process that was made for this description to take place.
President
What my
Reese?
concern is today.
Dr. Thomason?
Yes. I hear where both sides are coming from. I would also like to let the board know that several members on Dr. Schillingberg's committee were also on the media specialist committee, and so there was overlap there. They had met with the media specialists on a quarterly basis, and so that input was taken into account when they met with Dr. Schillingberg's committee also. So our media specialists had met with several of the members that were on Dr. Schillingberg's committee 4 times this year and discussed the future of the media centers. And so I do believe that we did collect information from the 3 media specialists that we did have this year.
But Dr. Thompson, you said 4 meetings, but there were 2 of those meetings would have occurred before the new positions were created, right?
All 4 meetings took place throughout the 16-17 school year with the media specialists and several of the members that are on Dr. Schillingberg's committee that made the job description.
Right, but we did not have that vote until, when did we vote on that? Like February?
February 22nd was.
So if they met in September, well, I don't know what they would have been talking about.
We were talking about the duties and the requirements of the media specialist when they did have the media specialist, 3 media specialists this year, and the job descriptions and what they were doing at each of the schools. Even though they were sharing 3 schools, I believe that we were talking about ways to move forward and the future of the media specialists, especially in January when we talked about moving forward to having 9 media specialists for our elementary schools.
But the conversation would have changed after the board vote, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
It did
Okay.
change.
Well, and it changed slightly because that part of those conversations was information that was brought to the board prior to that vote, when we had our different options, and that was done by that committee.
The committee, with the media specialists and some of the administrators
Right.
that were on that committee, did discuss the options for 4 media specialists, 4.5 media specialists, the 9 media specialists, and the 9 media specialists with 9 aides. So lots of different options were discussed at that time.
I guess what I just want to say in closing is that I believe that this is not the Higley way. This decision, this process, in reference to this job description, wasn't made under the assistance of our HR department. We don't have an HR director at this time, and the people who were processing this job description on this list that we have are not HR people. So how do we know that everything is in place in reference to, those type of things? And I would be more comfortable with not accepting this job description. Wait till our HR person director comes here in a couple weeks and sees that things are in place, because the other thing, this is not the Higley way, is that we hired these librarians, and then...
They're not librarians.
Media specialists, sorry. Okay, take it back.
Because that's
We hi-
very
we-
different.
Okay, taking it back. We hired 9 media specialists. They signed a contract with us. May 30th, when they're gone, we change and we add some things to their job descriptions, okay?
Well, we
Now-
added
no,
9.
okay,
Sorry, we
I'm
added
just-
6. We
I'm
had 3.
Whatever.
We added 6. Well, no, Mr. Ratovich, not whatever. Because Dr. Schillingberg,
I'm telling, I'm still
Process
talking.
that.
I am talking, please. And we hired these people, and they did sign contracts with us, okay?
and
the
Dr.
contract-
Schillingberg can
and the-
tell you the discussion during the interview of what their positions would be.
It's not what the contract says, okay? The contract says this is what your job is. You signed the contract, okay? Now, this is not, now these people are coming back, okay? Now they're coming back to say, now, the media specialist, you're not going to be media specialists in the books. You're going to be in there 8 hours a day in a technology lab, which we don't have technology curriculum. We don't have a plan for grading. We don't have a plan. So I don't, this makes me extremely nervous. We have this job description for people that this is not what we signed on. When I go to buy a car, okay, and the car says it has a 6-cylinder engine, and I'm going to buy it for X amount of dollars, I come back the next day and I sign a contract. I come back the next day and they put a 4-cylinder in. They say, oh, well, no, I didn't sign a contract like that. I signed it in good faith for X amount, and this is what play. And
Dr.
this is the-
Schillingberg, can you discuss the hiring process for the additional 6? We had 3, we hired 6 additional. Can you, because
Yes.
the contract doesn't specifically state their
They-
duties.
Exactly. And I think the other issue is that the media specialists worked with our coach to develop the curriculum maps that they're going to be teaching with. And so they were part of that process. And I understand you say we don't have a curriculum, but if I'm going to take that philosophy, then all the elementary teachers in the whole district had no curriculum for reading for 12 years, and they still were able to manage to do it with the standards, because that's what's guiding them is the standards. And when you're talking about technology, most of the standards center around using that equipment. So it's not like you typically buy books or other resources for that. It's all available right there. But they were a part of that process. So I'm a little bit dumbfounded because the media specialists seemed really happy and excited, and I don't know why they're the issue, because they didn't have an issue. I'm happy to say I'm not an expert in writing job descriptions, but I don't think that they had any concerns about the job description.
Madam President, Assistant Superintendent just said he doesn't have any experience in writing job descriptions.
Right.
The day before you right now is a job description that you are to approve
Mm-hmm.
that does not have the review of our HR director to see if everything was done in the process. So
Ms.
my
Cook.
concern is that. And what my concern is that I'm not supporting this. We can come back at another time after the HR person can review it, at which time, and have a conversation with the media specialist, and have a conversation with what's happening around the world in this country in reference to our media specialist, because with this job description I see here, nobody's going to be visiting us to say, wow, guys, you have a great program in place, and that's what I want for this community. So with that being said,
Ms.
Madam President.
Ms. Good has a comment, and
I would
Ms.
like to
Glover.
repeat what I said last Tuesday at the end of the meeting when I was asked whether there was a violation of a policy by having a new job description that the board had not approved. And I said at that time, and I'll say it again, the board doesn't approve job descriptions according to your policies. The only mention of job descriptions that I can find is in policy GCA, which Mr. Witovich reads to mean that job descriptions must be approved by the governing board. Job descriptions are brought to the governing board when staff positions are created, because you can't create a new position without knowing what it is. And so job descriptions are brought to the board at the time that a new position is asked for, and not as a matter of approving the job description, but as an explanation of the position that's being requested. Then, if you read the rest of the policy, it says the superintendent will maintain a comprehensive and up-to-date set of job descriptions. Up-to-date meaning that they may have to be changed from time to time, but so that they are descriptive of what someone in that position is going to be doing. And I also mentioned, although the policy does not require board approval of job descriptions, the practice had been in the district, has been, to bring those to the board. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, I don't know. This particular one seems to be bringing out a lot of problems, but I just want to say that the policy does not require that job descriptions be brought to the board. And one of the reasons is that the board's job is to have some overarching goals for the district, to set some policies that can be utilized in implementing the very best educational environment possible. If I were starting a brand new school district, I would advise the governing board not to look at job descriptions at all, because you get 5 people, today only 4, but usually 5, who have their own particular ideas. But yet, you hire professionals who are supposed to put these things together and bring them to you. I really don't want to get into that policy end of it, small policy, but capital policy, the board has really no authority to approve job descriptions. The only time you have to see a job description is when a new position is being requested.
President
Just a minute,
Reese-
Mr.
no, President
Witovich.
Reese,
Mr. Glover had a comment some time ago.
I'd just like to just make one comment in reference to this, that she says that our staff attorney said that we don't have the authority to job description. Can I repeat what 9.5 says before us today? We do, and this says we approved media specialists, yes or no. That's before us today. It's not the conversation of an opinion, please.
It was your request that this come before us as an action item, and Ms. Good explained the difference between what has been district practice, and it has been practice that these come before the board, but it is not required by policy. So that was the explanation, is it's not required by policy for us to do it, but it has been our practice for us to do it. You requested that the updated media specialist job description come before us, and that's where we're at right now. So, and Mr. Glover, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be all over the place a little bit, but I just want to talk about processes. I'd like Higley to be, my interest is that Higley is a place where people want to work because they feel their input is valued. So from just an outsider's perspective, I guess, or as a board member's perspective, the process, put it nicely, you may take issue with this, I'm sure you will, but I don't know that the process and the outcomes here have demonstrated a high regard for teachers when you plan like this. And I don't think it was intentional or deliberate, but if I were on the other end and I left my classroom and I turned in my keys and I left for the summer thinking one thing, and then on June 13th, the rules change, and not just a little. I mean, I think what we're asking these guys to do is a pretty drastic change, and I'm not even sure we're quite ready for a leap like this, but that's going to be your call. I just don't think that the stakeholders were as involved in the process as they could have been, and I just worry about the trust of teachers and building successful programs. So, furthermore, somewhere in here, there's something about media specialists now grading, and the report card being changed. And just as an educator, I would oppose that. But as a board member, it's fine. I mean, you make that decision. But these folks you have managing books, doing spelling bees, geography bee, battle of the books, training the campuses on the new ELA standards, training them on technology, distributing textbooks, ordering books, learning and teaching new technology, and now you want them to grade assignments. I mean, it's overwhelming. It's going to overwhelm them, and I worry that we're setting them up for failure or just an endless churn of media specialists. I don't know why a media specialist couldn't just teach kids how to use Google Slides or find reliable resources or even use Photoshop if that's what you want to do. And then the teachers then would use that in their classroom. But when you start doing it in isolation, then people don't bother. But here again, in April, I think, we approved media specialists to come back. And that job description should have probably been developed shortly after that. And I know we're all busy, but if you need more staff, then ask for it. I would be supportive of that. Sometimes we are overwhelmed with what we have to do, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask for more people. And this may be a good job description for someday. I mean, but it doesn't mention books or reading in there, which kind of struck me as unusual for a media specialist. But I'd rather keep. I'm with Mr. Witovich. I'd probably rather keep a previous job description, and then and then give these media specialists some real PLC time and some time with the new curriculum director and the reading specialists and the lit coaches and the tech coaches and everything else to decide truly a much better plan. This seems rushed, and it was. I mean, we're admitting that we had ELA and all these other things on our plate. So I just don't think it was as inclusive as a good organization would do. So if we're voting on this, I'm going to vote no, and I hope some other board members will too, just to slow down a little bit.
And I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to just kind of add some information there. I agree the job description should have been updated back in April. When we approved specifically for media specialists to be doing the technology piece, that was the action item, and that is what we voted on. We did get some background information on that, and the reason it wasn't updated right away is because it was very clear and directed by board members that once we approved the additional 6, that it get posted immediately. So therefore, if it needed to be posted immediately, there is no time to totally update it.
Okay, but is that fair to the teachers? But go ahead.
Let
I
me-
interrupted. Sorry.
And that's why I had asked Dr. Schillingberg in these interviews for these 6 additional positions, what was discussed, because clearly they weren't here during our conversations about the media specialists and library being a special again, and option A, B, C, D. The the new people we were adding to that weren't here for that conversation. And that's why I asked Dr. Schillingberg, through the interviews, what were these potential employees, candidates, told about this job? And Dr. Schillingberg explained that it was made very clear they would be teaching technology. They would be teaching the technology piece of our curriculum. And so they had an understanding of what that position was when they were interviewed and offered the position.
President Reese, if I could just interject, in the meeting today, we did discuss the balance, because that was one of the questions they asked. How much of this is going to be technology? Because they, again, helped write the curriculum maps for the technology that they're going to teach. So they were a very big part of that process. And we talked about, it's going to be different for different grade levels. The younger grades, it's not going to take very long to cover those standards. So that'll be more literacy development. I mean, you're going to have a balance there, but this is new for us. You're going to have to kind of explore and see where you see the needs are with the students. And we want them to have that freedom to make those professional decisions. And they were fine about that. There was no issue with them about anything we're asking. And Mr. Glover, agree with you totally. The job is overwhelming, but I would say that a lot of the jobs are overwhelming. That's just kind of the nature of education. But my goal with meeting with them was to show that we are here to support you. These are the people you should talk to if you have questions, if you have issues. And we're going to meet with them monthly to keep the dialogue going, to make sure they're feeling supported, that they have what they need. And again, there was no issue with them. They were pretty positive about it.
President Reese, in reference when
I'm sorry, I
you
wasn't quite finished. So as far as all their roles and responsibilities as well, we have to remember they each have a media aide with them. There's 9 media specialists, 9 media aides. And so a lot of the duties that are listed here are in conjunction with their aide. It is supporting their aide where some of these responsibilities that are listed here, the aide also has that same responsibility. So it's done in conjunction. It's not just for them, you do all this and you're going to do this. They do have assistants in there. So I get what you're saying. It's a lot listed. I understand that. And we're trying to move forward. Mr. Ratovich has asked for a long time that we really start incorporating technology. We've said we're behind the 8 ball on the technology piece. And you asked for coding, and we got coding and everything. So we're trying to move forward with that technology piece and make it a bigger part of our schools, our elementaries. So they're not expected to do this all on their own. They do have assistants. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for staff input. And even what's on here is not necessarily going to encompass and everything what they do. Those positions, they're going to evolve. They're going to change. They're going to end up adding stuff, and we'll end up taking certain stuff away. That's just what happens. And a job description, again, it's a generality of these are your roles, and it mostly portrays the vision and of what that employer wants that position to be. That's the intent of a job description, is this is what we want for this to be. And so even what's before us now will be different before the end of the year. And it's not that the job description will be different, it will be what they do. And I agree, the curriculum piece, and Dr. Schillingberg said, those curriculum maps, that curriculum piece, they need to be a part of, because this is what they do. And that developmental piece, they're developing a lot of new stuff. And that will be their biggest asset, is their input there. And they'll help create that. A job description is not necessarily the place for them to have their input. It is a general document that has the vision of what the employer wants that position to accomplish. So I think that as we move forward, and with Mrs. Richards and Dr. Schillingberg, and with the media specialists, and with the technology group, they're all going to create different things, and it's going to be different for different grade levels, and you're going to have to tailor some things. As much as we don't like it and we cringe at it, certain schools are going to have to do some things different, even within their media centers, just based on their size and things like that. So it's not an all-encompassing document. It's an overview. It's a general document of what your vision for that position to be. And like I said, there's media aids in there to help.
I would just, in reference to, I just want to, in reference to what Mrs. Reese and Mr. Glover said in reference to the aides being there. I don't know if the board is aware that with the aides, if the aides in the libraries are absent, there's nobody there to replace them. So all this work that you just mentioned, Mr. Glover, as far as being placed on these media specialists, if their aides are absent, they're on their own. There's nobody to help them with the books. If the technology media people are going to be in this media tech center teaching tech for 8 hours, then that day, your library is going to be closed, because if the aide is sick that day, who's supposed to be books and checking in and out books, inventory, your library will be closed in that elementary school that day, because we do not have subs for the aides. So when you will walk into a building and the aide is absent, your library will be closed and dark, and your media specialist will be sitting in the next room teaching technology all day long. My concern again is in reference to the contract. It states in the contract, when these media specialists signed them, what their job description was. I don't care what somebody says during a meeting. When you're talking to 6 different people, how do you know that everything was addressed to those 6 people? I made it's that game how you talk and you just pass it around. So how do you know for sure that all 6 of these people were giving X, Y, Z in reference to, okay, you're going to teach technology, you're going to do this, you're going to do this? We don't know that for those 6 people. It was a conversation. And how do we know that conversation took place with 6 people? A contract is a contract. This is what these people signed a contract. And I guess my one last question I want to ask in reference to the coding, it's sporadic in this district. It's at 1 or 2 schools. It's not implemented because we don't have a plan. So, I mean, we're starting on that.
But that's
type
where
of
we're
thing.
getting to,
Okay,
and
in
that's
reference to
part
that,
of this.
I guess my one last question, I don't know if Dr. Schoenberg or if Mrs. Richards, since we signed this, you sent out this email to the principals on May 30th, with that group of individuals that signed a contract, with the contract that we originally signed, has any of them resigned? You're not aware? See, I think that's a question that needs to be with our HR people in reference to that, because I would be really kind of concerned if there's been any resignations as a result of them coming back and seeing, hey, I signed a contract with you before this date. This is what I said. Now you want me to do this? I'd be kind of
I can address that. There have not been.
fine.
President Reese?
Oh, Dr. T, go ahead.
I apologize, Ms. Kaler, I didn't see. A few things that I wanted to address is that I think it would be very prudent and forthright to let Mrs. Richards talk about her meeting today with the media specialists. They did specifically talk about the job description, and I think getting her information on what the media specialist talked about and what was positive, what were the concerns, I think would also be very prudent for the board. I also think that even if we do not approve this job description today, and we wait for our HR director to come in, then we still have the same issue that Mr. Witovich is saying, that we do have people under contract that signed a contract and the job description changed. So if we have the new HR director come in, we put together a new media specialist position, we still have people that are under the same contract. I just think that needs to be put to the forefront too, that it doesn't solve the problem of people signing a contract that was different if we change the media specialist job description when our new HR director gets here. We still would have that same issue. Mrs. Richards.
I think Mrs. Kaplan, did you have, sorry.
President Reese, if I
Mrs.
may.
Kaler.
I'm a little baffled again by all of this. I feel like we are really meddling into something that is none of my business. I believe that we are moving ahead with technology in such an amazing way. We are trying with our new curriculums, and I know math is coming down the pipe, science is next, and there's going to be changes all along the way. And I don't understand this ticky-tack, you're upset about Mr. Witovich and Mr. Glover about grades, but I think when it comes down to it, when we grade our specials, it's a participatory pass, unsatisfactory. I mean, it's not like grade after grade after grade after grade, not like our teachers are grading every day, yet these are certified teachers that we've asked to come and take into these positions. So it's important that we have our support of our other teachers as well, who are giving grades and doing many things, and their jobs have changed, and why would we hire media specialists if we didn't want them to do more than what our aides were already doing? So I'm confused that you want us to go ahead, but you don't want them to do this, this, and that. Like, we can't have it both ways, and I feel like we're being really ticky-tack on this job description, and I am not for deciding what exactly my media specialist is going to do down to the very nth of her day. I'm not, or his day. I don't want to be a part of that. I think that's meddling into something that is not our business.
I'd just like to respond to that. It's not about meddling. I think we are Higley. So what you're saying is that we're going to move forward with a new program, but the people who are on the front lines, we don't want their input. I don't care what your input is.
We did have their input. Of the ones that were already, 3 of them, we had their input. We had their input. They're the ones that decided the A, B, C, and D. They're the ones that picked the options. They knew what was coming down the pipe. There was 3 of them
That's not the job
that we
description
did.
sitting in front of you today is not A, B, C, D. It is the job description sitting in front of you that they did not have any input.
We talked about technology being part of the media specialists, bringing them back. When we had that work study meeting, we specifically said technology was going to be a huge part of bringing back our media specialists. It was not going to be about checking out books anymore. It was going to be a technology-based, and I remember even Mr. Glover stating specifically, let's be clear when we hire these that they are capable of that technology piece. I remember that very clearly. Am I the only one that remembers that?
And I remember other board members have said when we bring something forward, we want input from people in this district. It's very important. I value what the teachers in this district say. And now with this job description, you're comfortable with it being brought before you today with people who do not have HR experience. It has not been reviewed by our HR people, and you're fine with that. That makes me uncomfortable.
I would love to hear what Mrs. Richards has to say.
President Reese, Governing Board. On a positive note, today we had an incredible meeting. It was really fun to sit and talk to everybody, appreciate their efforts. They've all been working more than a normal work week to get those materials unpacked and distributed, and they're all being so gracious, and Dr. Schillingberg has worked it out to pay them for their time, so that was exciting. I mean, it was a positive thing because I mean, they are going above and beyond, and so are their aides and other people. We did go over the job description with them and asked them, do you have questions? Do you have concerns? We talked through stuff. They were positive. The only thing that they commented on was it needed a comment about coordinating book fairs, which is a really big thing that they do for us. We talked about the grading process, and it is cumbersome, but if we're going to change it for the media specialists, then all the other specials teachers need to follow the same thing. So we're going to meet and talk through that, and maybe it is more like satisfactory, unsatisfactory, instead of the standards-based grading, because it is a lot for art teachers, music teachers, PE teachers, when you see somebody once a week. So we're meeting next Wednesday because they're ready to get going, and I mean, it was a positive meeting, so that's what I would say. And they're all great, great people.
So Richard, when you had a conversation with the media specialist today, what did you tell them their job description was? And I guess I'm just kind of, to back up that, I'm not to put you on a spot. I think
That's
you're
okay.
You're
Just go right
wonderful.
ahead.
You're wonderful, okay? But I just kind of can, as far as what the conversation was as to what the media specialist jobs were going to be, their job description. When this was happening at 3:30, you were having a conversation about their job description when it wasn't going to be voted on until this evening. So how did we know what job description that they were going to have when the board has not voted on it yet? I'm just curious.
We just gave them what you have and said, you know, most of them had already seen it. To my knowledge, all of them had. What questions, read over it. Do you have concerns? Do you have input? And that's basically what we gave them. We did talk about, is it just pure technology the whole time? And we clarified, no, it depends on the grade level. It depends on the technology standards you're covering and how you're going to work with your teachers to integrate technology and curriculum. So does that answer what you're asking me?
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Good, can I have one more clarification that's before us? So what happens with these 9 media specialists if this job description is not approved tonight as it's before us?
I think they will do the job that they knew they were being hired to do. And we will simply go forward with the old job description, which has different words, but essentially covers the same things. They know what they're going to be doing.
So their actual job and roles and responsibilities will not change based on as they understood it today with Mrs. Richards.
That's what they'll be doing because that's what it takes to get the job done. And they're not being, it's not a bait and switch. I don't know, I don't do the interviewing, but I don't think very many people actually look at their job description before they sign their contract. If you're going to teach, you're going to teach. And there are a lot of things that can you would run out of paper if you were going to list all of them. But what's put on the paper is the best description that you can have of the position, but it doesn't limit what is required to do. So what will they be doing? I think they're going to be doing whatever it is that Mrs. Richards and Dr. Schillingberg talked to them about. And whether we use the old description or the new one or yet one that's not developed yet, they'll still be doing the job.
So there's nothing different with them and what they're doing, whether we approve this job description tonight or not.
That's correct.
President Reese, that was kind of my point earlier, sorry,
No,
is that when you take on a job and you start working, and I remember started working for this district, I was a front office receptionist for a short time, and there were things that came my way that I didn't have the experience in. I had never seen it before, but I was asked to do it, and I was trained in it, and I did it. And there's no questions asked. So I'm just baffled that this is before us again. I'd like to really just move past this and let these certified, amazing teachers do their thing. And I think they're gonna do an amazing thing in our libraries, and I'm excited to see the growth that we will see in this year in our libraries. And I'm ready to move on past this.
I think it's important, I agree that these media specialists go forward with the contracts that they signed. And that's what I'm pleased with them to do, move forward with the contracts that they signed with. So if there's no further
I
questions.
feel like, though, Mr. Gutovich, I'm not sure where all this came from you specifically. I'm sure that there are other job descriptions out there right now that people are doing far more than what was on the original job description, and you're not bringing all those forward. You're bringing just media specialists, and I don't see a single one here barking at me saying, I don't want to do this. So I don't understand where this all came from and why there's so much time spent on media specialists when we could be just doing so much more up here than arguing over this when the people that are doing the job aren't even speaking up. In fact, I'm hearing positive things from this meeting today. So I don't understand where this comes from. I'm frustrated tonight that I had to sit through a very long day for everybody in this room over this. It just seems silly to me.
President Reese, can we take a vote, please?
Can I,
Mr. Glover?
let me turn that on again. So, I mean, my criticism isn't necessarily of the job description. I talked about the process and wanting it to make sure that it was inclusive, and I don't feel it was as inclusive as it could have been. But if what I'm hearing is that these teachers are going to have some flexibility to fix things that work, and that's what I really wanted, I guess, to hear and to know and to understand. And I have heard from some of the media specialists about what a big change this is. So, again, well, that's all, I guess. Well, sometimes this is the thing that we've talked about too. Sometimes they're scared or intimidated or whatever, and it's too bad that it has to get to that. But when you involve people in the process all along the way, then I think that kind of takes care of itself. But I have heard criticism.
Well, and I agree. There's, like I said, there's certain things that I believe people should be involved in, and then there's certain things that just need to be done from the business office and everything. So I agree. And I just encourage them, based on what Mrs. Richards said, that if they're not communicating these issues and concerns with the people who are working with them and creating this and helping them along, and just trying to bring concerns to the board, we can't fix that. We can't fix that. So I just encourage them to professionally talk to the people who are here to help them and work through this process to bring this incredible opportunity of really teaching technology to our kids. Mr. Rutovich, you've said we are behind the 8 ball in teaching the technology, the coding, the everything, and it's going to take us some time to get up to speed. And so I just really encourage them to talk to the people who can help them, the people who can fix it, and that way we can have them help them. Let's move and let's get this done and do what we can together. So
President Reese?
we've spent a lot of time on media specialists, and we're talking about some words. The job description's not a whole lot different.
Yeah, President Reese, Mr. Glover, my main purpose of meeting with the media specialist was to support them and to find out what they needed to be successful at their job. And that's what we talked about. And they were very grateful to know that they had the flexibility. We weren't having this rigid set standard at each level, because it depends on the students. And again, that they had the support from us and that we'd meet regularly to help them.
And I would just encourage, if media specialists are coming to you as board members with concerns, we need to refer them back to the people who are here to support them, the people who can make the change.
That's fine. I didn't get into any details. I didn't say that. I'm not that person, but I do talk to people and I do listen to people.
No. And I'm not saying you shouldn't.
I encourage the chain of command as well.
Right.
So
I'm not
I wanna
saying
be
you
very
should.
clear on that.
Right. I'm not saying you shouldn't. So I'm just saying that based on concerns from board members that they're hearing and based on the people who are here to support them and working with them, they're two different things. And I would just really encourage them then to go to the people who can support them and make that change. So if we don't have any other comments or concerns, all those in favor of approving the media specialist job description?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Those who abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries 2-1-1. All right, so for future agenda items, the 2018-19 calendar committee survey, my understanding is we're supposed to be getting an update on that hopefully in August, as they have some items there. And then we are still working on the overview of services provided by guidance counselors. And I will talk to Dr. Thomason and Dr. Mallerwine on getting some specific dates to get that together. We do have the AR item that will be put on the August 2nd agenda. Is there any other future agenda items? All right. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, motion carries 3-0-1. Meeting is adjourned.